Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Yesterday something very big happened. Blizzard sent out a survey asking for players' input on how TBC servers should be launched, very specifically for characters. What happens to your character if we do move to TBC? Now, I've made a video on both of these subjects because I felt like Classic was progressing pretty quickly, and I thought it'd be something that would happen eventually and that it was worth talking about, and those are the TBC or Classic Plus videos and the what happens to Classic if we do get TBC. I will link them below if you want a bit more in depth on those two subjects. I am in favour of going to TBC personally. I love the expansion and thought it really felt like a step up and a true successor to the legacy that Classic has brought us. Also, in terms of the manner in which we moved to TBC, I thought, a bit pessimistically I'll admit, that we would just get a full transfer to the new content and no real options to remain in Classic, because that's without a doubt the easiest thing for Blizzard to do. Which is why when I saw this survey I was so happy, because it contains options to remain in Classic. This is a fantastic step for those who love Classic and wish to remain there. Okay, let's actually have a look at this survey then. By the way, check your email linked to your Battle.net account if you've got one, that's where it will be. The number of times Blizzard gives us the chance to vote is so slim, your opinion really matters here, make it count. First of all, they are essentially asking whether you would like TBC. I know I will be saying extremely interested here. Secondly, Blizzard give us their options on how a player could start on a TBC server. Now, this is the interesting bit. So we're going to go through the options and I want to give you my thoughts. And by the way, this isn't my survey. Didn't get one, rip me. Option 1, transfer to TBC, with the option to choose to move to a Classic only server. This is basically what I thought Blizzard would do initially, but with the added option to actually move your character to a Classic server before the rest of the player base moves on to TBC. The fact that the burden of the transfer could actually be on the Classic side makes this quite interesting, because there will without a doubt be far more players moving on to TBC than remaining in Classic. And the actual thought of a transfer to new TBC servers will play out just like the mess that the launch of Classic did, with servers dying, being underpopulated, faction dominance, people transferring off and onto servers that are already high population, which is by the way becoming more and more of an issue. Blizzard shouldn't allow transfers to servers that are already full, but that's another issue by itself. So first of all, it avoids that. Those that are adamant about remaining in Classic have a way to do so through these new servers. I imagine it'd be one way to TBC, but not one way if you wanted to go back from the Classic server over to TBC. Also, this will facilitate the inevitable need to server merge for the people remaining in Classic, as the majority of the player base will be moving on to TBC. I think I can say that with a level of certainty. Sure, it's not great for the Classic players, but at the end of the day, one side has to deal with the issue of the transfer, and it's just better doing it with less players. Also, some people are playing Classic just for Classic. It has been such a long time coming. Taking it away after TBC is just alienating players for no real reason, when they could remain in the version of the game they prefer for whatever reason they wish to do so. Option 2 is the vice versa of 1 really. Your character carries on in Classic with that option to transfer to TBC, and this isn't such a great option for me personally. I'm guessing that once you make that transfer, it's going to be one way, what with all the new gear and items and levels that your character gains, unless Blizzard keep a carbon copy of your character pre-transfer, which sounds pretty unlikely. This creates a barrier of am I making the right choice, because chances are once that boundary is crossed, that's it, Classic is gone. Also, we then have the aforementioned issues with trying to set up new servers and sort out everything again, getting your character's name, guild name, and so on. It's transfer, not a copy, remember, so everything is going to be up in the air. Also, transfers will do the most to split the population, which I don't think will be as big of an issue as perceived, but the fact that it's Classic or TBC and not Classic and TBC is. So I'm not a fan of this, personally. Options 3 and 4 are both concerning new servers and new characters entirely. These have big downsides, as well as upsides. So option 3 allows us to have a new character at level 58 on fresh TBC servers. A fresh and new even playing field where we all have character templates and everything is thrown at us straight away. This is essentially the same as getting a character boost in the modern game, and it's not a great experience. It sounds cool being able to play any class straight from level 58. You will have loads of abilities and talents and just a lot to play with from the get-go, but it skips out the leveling period beforehand, when you learned how your class worked and what was effective for you, what you enjoyed playing. I think in an MMO, a very important part of the game is taking the time to get to know your class, especially when I imagine your starter template gear would be near ready to hop straight into Hellfire Ramparts. In previous expansions, Blizzard have given a free character boost with it. I remember in Legion I boosted a mage and I had no idea what was going on, and that was with the ability pruning back then as well. Also, this presents the issue as for vanilla content. It will be as if it never existed. How do professions work? I guess we just have to auto set them to artisan level, because materials from vanilla will be non-existent. In fact, the only people doing vanilla content for materials will be people re-rolling professions, or leveling professions will be bots. It'll be packed with bots with next to zero competition. The game essentially pretending vanilla didn't happen just won't end up being a good idea, in my opinion. Option 4, make a new character on a TBC server starting from level 1. This is better than starting from level 58 for the reasons mentioned above. I know leveling can be a bore, but pretending vanilla just didn't exist just isn't very MMO-like at the end of the day. But to be honest, I don't really want to level again from level 1 either. In fact, I don't want to restart my character at all. No, there are no set in stone achievements in the game. There are things I have achieved personally: mounts, reputation, my gear. I've worked to make my character stronger, and moving into TBC, that should be a consideration that's taken into account. On the other hand, fresh characters do solve certain issues. Big issues, primarily to do with stockpiling items in advance of the TBC launch. The amount of people with epic flying upon hitting 70 is gonna be huge. People will come into TBC with hundreds upon hundreds of stacks of thorium to prospect for gems. People are so good at gold farming these days, and many will be coming into TBC with thousands and thousands saved up. It's going to inflate the market big time for a very long time. But overall, I don't think option 4 is the answer either. And finally, option 5, none of the above. Maybe this is what I would choose. You see, these options are all considering transferring or new servers. Copying is never mentioned, and copying is what a lot of people seem to be in favour of. Transferring, you see, has issues. It creates the barrier to entry that we've talked about, and could absolutely give you a bad case of buyer's remorse. The barrier to entry may keep players from ever transferring out of fear of making the wrong choice. Ideally, there shouldn't have to be a choice. Concerning starting from level 1 or fresh servers, once again, is another barrier to entry. Playing through Classic again just to get to TBC is not very compelling. Many people never even got to level 60 or are still well on their way through the journey to it. Resetting progress is going to instantly kill people's motivation to push for max level and see the new content, and if or when TBC comes, it should be as welcoming as possible to as many players as possible. What I would like, and what I think many people would like, is the word transfer to be reconsidered as copy. A character copy is different from a transfer in that it would essentially be on a certain date. Your character, gear, server, guild, everything you have is snapshotted and recreated on a TBC server that would be separate on the Battle.net client. From there you would have the option to log in on Classic from that date, or whenever TBC becomes available, you can log into that version of the game and progress from there. As for how doable this is for Blizzard, no idea. Sounds like unprecedented territory to do something like this, and it will be the kind of endeavour where things are going to go wrong, because it's kind of impossible to test something on the scale of the live game. Also, copying isn't without its own issues, primarily just the sheer gold values people will have. I think it's important that your character isn't turned into some generic template. Sure, you're going to have to replace your gear pretty fast in TBC, but people want trophies in the bank, people want memories, things like legendaries, eternal quintessence, chromatic carapace, savage gladiator's chain, and so on. And you should be able to still have those and be proud of those achievements, because they are achievements. A core part of an MMORPG is character development, and your character can be the result of hundreds or thousands of hours of gameplay. And this is where things become tricky, because I would like there to be some kind of limitation of how much of certain items can be copied. This is tricky because it purposefully resets progress of people who have made large efforts to farm gold as a core part of their gameplay in Classic. Items like raw gold, trade goods, and items that have a very large impact on the economy should be limited for the betterment of a more healthy economy moving forwards. Overall, I'm very glad that Blizzard is taking steps to engage us this early on, and I would love it if they would just nominate someone from Blizzard as a Classic WoW spokesperson so we can get a bit more face-to-face action, somebody to relate to, and I'm not doubting this person would need a stiff upper lip, but the more communications we can get, the better. For me, I think I'm a bit torn if I were to get this survey. I'm not necessarily against option 1, but I think transferring just creates too many issues. I think I would have to go with none of the above, and would personally like some form of character copy. If we could have Blizzard evaluate and communicate the possibility of that being a thing, then we can go from there. Oh, and of course we're going to have plenty more to talk about TBC down the line. There's a lot more issues to be covered. Should it be on 2.4, the itemization, talents, and so on. We can get to that later on. Anyways, check your email, go vote if you can, and let me know your thoughts. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.